Welcome back to another episode of the Three-Man Weave College Basketball Show, hosted by Fade the Noise, FTN. It's Saturday. That means we get to talk about college basketball. We love doing that. I'm going to
We
turn
get
on
to spin our hats. That's actually the most fun.
Yeah, I just turned on my face lights. I'm a little bit brighter now. Wow, the entire world opened up to me. Our show, by the way, is sponsored by Collectable. Collectable.com/FTN. Check it out. Jim, Matt, what's up, fellas? Matt, you ready to watch some basketball today?
Absolutely. I'm actually with my girlfriend right now in Scottsdale.
Oh,
brag.
Matt's got a girlfriend.
Thank you. But that lead-in was important, Kai, because she's first in her bracket. And for the first time ever, she knows what college basketball is. So we get to actually spend most of the day watching those games, Jim, as opposed to another 10-mile hike off the beaten path into the abyss of the Arizona desert. So it's a win for me. Jim, how are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm not in first place in my bracket, but I am first in possible points. So
all four Final Fours.
I'm the tortoise. I'm got to chase the hare still, but I'm excited.
Hey, nice guys. Okay. Hey, what are we doing? Just talking around here. Let's get into it. First of all, actually, let's do this. Matt, I want you to kick us off with some historical data. Will you do that for us, or data?
Absolutely, I can. There's really only two nuggets that are worth bringing up, but I will while we're on the topic. So the last 4 tournaments, 5 years. Obviously, last year we did not have a tournament. RIP.
Pour one out.
Underdogs are 15-13 against the spread.
I'll bet all underdogs today. What a
dogs, big dogs.
Yes.
I think there's this narrative that like dogs are just better bets here because they ride like the confidence, and there's a slight lean toward that side, but the data doesn't really bear that out. There's no additional stratification if you look at like the smaller or larger dogs, and there's no edge for like large seeds like Oral Roberts double-digit seeds. Really nothing that showed out there. However, unders are actually 18-14. The last 4 seasons. So I think people don't realize how much the pace really deflates late in March and then even more as the tournament goes on. I think every possession is so critical that even teams like Earl Bob who want to run aren't as giddy to go up and down. So I think that's maybe an angle we should be looking at.
Yeah, teams start to tighten up, Matthew, right?
Get tight.
Start to get a little bit worried with the basketball.
That's right.
Is that it, Matt? Is that all your historical data?
That's all I got. I'm sorry. I was doing some queries this morning and I didn't find anything else.
As we go through these games, I'll talk about the Steam to kind of lead us off instead of just doing a separate section on it. That's how I'll go about things. Let's start off with Baylor. Baylor against Villanova. A very, very intriguing game here. This one opened up at Chris at -6.5. It's up to 7.5. People are loving the Bears. Hit 7 a few days ago. 7.5 is more recent. But the total, guys, a lot of movement here. 139 opener to 142.5. The people are digging the points in this game. Let's start with Jim. Matchup, total. What you got?
Well, I'm a little surprised at that total movement. I believe KenPom has this game at 150. He does. Wow. He also only has it at 65 possessions. So he is predicting very efficient scoring on both sides. And I think the tempo makes sense. Villanova's played very slow since Gillespie went down, which also makes sense. He was your point guard. 63 possessions, 63, 65, 59 over the last 4 games. Really have hit the brakes. But guys, I like Baylor. I think they are better. I think they've got some real matchup advantages in terms of getting shots on the perimeter and the way they can guard the new adjusted Villanova offense that centers around Jeremiah Robinson Earl. So I like Baylor probably more than I like either side of the total at this point, Matthew, even though it has been bet up above 7, which bums me out.
Yeah, no take on the total. I definitely lean Baylor, but at this point, it does feel foolish to hop in at 7.5 at a stale number. If you're going to take full game, would buy the half 0.27. But this is sort of one of those numbers where if you're looking to hop in late on the favorite, I think first half -4 is probably a good side. The Baylor guard athleticism, the way they can get into the paint, the way they can disrupt Villanova's ball handlers, who are obviously without their key catalyst and Gillespie. I think that's a big matchup edge here, Kai.
Let's attack this from some different angles here, because we've talked about these games a lot over the past week here. We've talked about Gillespie not being here. Georgetown game, Providence game, disaster. Went through North Texas. Good, you could say. But Jim, your take on if Mark Vital can guard Jeremiah Robinson Earl effectively on the perimeter, in the post, what have you?
I think he can, but I guess that kind of requires Baylor going smaller and playing him at the 5, because otherwise you've got Cha Cha or Flo Thamba out there on the court, and I don't really know who else you put either of them on besides Robinson Earl, because they play that like Samuels, Robinson Earl, super versatile front court.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they scale down, I think Vital's like the perfect guy to guard him. He's strong, he's quick, he's long enough. I mean, he's not as big as Robinson Earl, but I think if you can bother him, make him shoot over the top, tough twos, that's really how you frustrate this Nova offense. And they probably won't go 15 of 30 from deep again, Matthew.
Yeah, I was just looking at the most frequent used lineups the last 5 games, courtesy of Ken Pom. Cole Swider is starting to play a little bit more here recently. 19 minutes last game, 13 the game before. I know he was a key piece throughout the season, sort of phased out a little bit toward the last 2 regular season games. I think he's a guy you can exploit defensively. I know he doesn't have a reputation as a great defender. So I would look for Baylor maybe to, if maybe Matthew Meyer gets that could be torch city there, and we've seen him torch plenty of better defenders throughout the season. He's kind of that burgeoning X factor for the Bears here.
Would you believe Vital has 20 more pounds on him than Jeremiah Robinson Earl?
He's only like 6'5", right? But I think he has
6'5",
that, as Jim mentioned, that +6 wingspan or something. I don't have the measurables on offhand, but
I didn't know he could jump. That alley-oop he caught in, I can't remember the game, but I was like, yes. What?
He catches some.
Cha-Cha and Vital can both sky for sure.
Yeah. My take, guys, Baylor -7.5. That's a bet for me. I've locked it in already. Yes, I missed the 7 and the 6.5, so I'm not that sharp. I waited too long.
Loser.
I waited too long. All right. That's our take on Baylor Villanova. Let's move on. Oral Roberts, the Cinderella of the 2021 NCAA tournament, facing Arkansas, the pig suey of the NCAA tournament. This spread has been dead on at Chris, 11.5 all week. Hasn't really budged either way. Some books, I think you saw some 11 out there. The total did move 2 points, opened 159.5, now down to 157.5. That kind of goes against my initial thoughts, Matthew. I would expect a lot of points in this game, but as we talked about on a different show, Oral Roberts and Arkansas have actually, their games, I believe, have gone under so far in the tournament, sort of unexpectedly.
Yeah, we probably should talk about the fact that these two teams played each other this season. I need to add into that matchup. I know I think that was sort of an oversight. Yeah. We're so far removed from the non-con. It was a close game. Yeah, Earl Bob competed.
They were up 10.5.
They're up 10.5. I mean, this is, and so if that, it almost feels appropriate given we'd seen Arkansas be down big in both their games this tournament. But I look at that Colgate matchup, the one I keep harkening back to as a sort of, decent precedent of similar style team, shoots lots of threes, wants to play up tempo. And we saw how quickly that game flipped, and Arkansas turned the defensive pressure up to 11 on the dial. And if that happens here, can Oral Bob, are they going to completely go into panic mode like Colgate did? Or are they going to have the composure to withstand it? I actually think they're more well equipped. I just think A-Smith is such an awesome one-on-one player. I mean, I love Jordan Burns from Colgate. I think A-Smith is just a better, he's not going to be as flustered by that. I think he can create his own against those awesome defenders, Jim. What are you looking at here?
Well, it's not just A-Smith. I think that's the deal with it. For Colgate, Burns wasn't really the issue. It was like, man, they give the ball to Tucker Richardson and you get 6'8" arms around him, and he kind of
that's true.
End up giving the ball up. Easy 2 points the other way. That was really what got Arkansas that 17-0 run to end the first half. I do think it's similar though. Colgate was was 6th in the country in turnover rate, and Oral Roberts is 14th. So you would think both can handle the pressure, but it's just Arkansas is a different kind of team than what both of these squads see for most of the year. It's probably going to come down to the Oral Bob shooting. They take so many threes, and they've hit enough so far this season. You got to hit shots against this Arkansas team, but we've seen over the past 2 years, it's very difficult. They make you uncomfortable. They have usually a lower 3-point percentage defensively, and I don't think it's all fluky. I think it's their length. It's the way they challenge shots, the way they fly around. So I'm still leaning Oral Roberts here. It just feels like a bigger number than I would make it at this point in the season, Kai, but it's not an emphatic type of lean here.
Yeah, the turnover rate too, we should clarify. Colgate played 5 teams, right? To get that turnover rate.
Right.
So definitely maybe a little bit shaky. Oral Roberts, full season, 6-1 guys against the spread against high major teams, including Wichita State. And that includes Arkansas. They lost that game by 9. I said they're up by 10.5. No reason they can't get out to a lead here early on, just like Colgate. just like Texas Tech. Kevin O'Banner is the guy that nobody talks about. First 2 games for Oral Roberts in the tournament, 29 points per game so far. He's been awesome. Shoots like 46% from 3. I do think Justin Smith or a guy like him is a pretty good matchup.
Yeah, he's a great matchup for him. Yeah, that's my concern here. Also, Kai, one more note here. No other Oral Roberts player has eclipsed double figures scoring in the first 2 rounds. It's been literally a 2-man show. The whole play.
It's 2 awesome players. I'm on Oral Bob, plus 11.5.
I am
like
too.
him here. I want the show to keep going on. And speaking of the show, keep going on. Let's keep going on with the show too. Loyola, Oregon State, the Beavers and the Ramblers. This is a fun matchup in just the terms of that, of like, hey, these 2 teams are in the Sweet 16. Cool. Actual matchup, probably kind of ugly. Honestly, the total is low, 126 to 125 now. Not expecting a whole lot of points. Both teams pretty good defensively. The line, Jim, -6.5 to 7 in favor of Loyola. It moved to 7 just a couple days ago. Do you agree with this small steam, or do you like the Beavers?
I have a hard time with the side here because of how low the tempo I think is going to be. And I did lock in the under earlier this week at 125.5. So I got that extra half point.
Nice.
I think it's just going to be really, really ugly on both ends. I think both teams can do things that potentially could trip up the other opponent. Obviously, Loyola Chicago's defense is as good as it gets, number 1 in the country per KenPom. They make it such a tough shell. It's going to be hard to score inside the arc for Oregon State. And even then, the 3-point shots are all challenged. So that makes that difficult. But on the other end, Matt, you've got Wayne Tinkle, the way he changes defenses and he smartly mixes in the defense that's working. It's almost like a hot hand where he's like, okay, they're not scoring against man today, or that they're struggling against zone. We saw him in rounds leading up to this use a lot of zone or almost no zone. So he's smart about the way he mixes defenses. He's had a whole week to prepare for this. I think this is going to be a grind fest on both offensive ends.
I agree. I did take Loyola. I made this number 9, and I realized it's sort of a dicey proposition taking such
you hate the Beavers. You hate
I
the
do.
Beavers.
I in full disclosure, as Kai always reminds me to bring up, I have bet against them the last 4 games, lose, and lose. So I'm just banging my head against the wall, and eventually it will break down. And this does feel like a low possession game that covering 7 for a non-fast offensive juggernaut is going to be a tricky thing. I just want to highlight one matchup angle that we really haven't discussed. Lucas Williamson for Loyola. I got to think he draws the Stephen Thompson assignment. He's one of the most underrated. Ethan. Sorry, I'm thinking of his brother. There's too many Thompsons in the Oregon State family of basketball players.
At least 2.
At least, yeah, 2. His dad's on the staff or something like that, or cousin or something. But he's an awesome defender. We found out how valuable he was when he missed time last year or the year before. Blanking on what year that was. It kind of reminds me of when Isaiah Livers has been out of the lineup for Michigan. I think there's so many intangibles that he brings other than scoring, defense, the way he can attack, can guard multiple positions. I think he's really the key in this game. He's been awesome, was phenomenal last round. I think he's the guy that can potentially stymie Thompson, who's really been their only reliable scorer. They've had guys make shots. They've had some of their big guys, Roman Silva, dominate up front. But if you can take away Thompson, Oregon State's offense becomes really limited really quickly.
Yeah, well, Loyola's offense, I think, can be limited here against Oregon State. I really do believe this Beavers team is legitimate now with their wins, last 5. I'll say them again because I like saying it. UCLA, Oregon, Colorado, Tennessee, Oklahoma State held both Oklahoma State and Tennessee under 0.9 points per possession. Like these guys can defend. I like Jim's point earlier on a different outlet about Roman Silva. Might have been our podcast, actually, guarding Cam Crutwig. Maybe some potential there for some foul trouble on the Crut. Jim, what do you think about that?
You can't have it if you're Loyola. You got to make sure he stays out of foul trouble and plays without fouling because there's no depth up there, and the offense is so centered around him.
Yes,
getting him the ball, getting him in those like shuffle handoffs where the opponent has to overhelp, and then he can keep it, rip through, get a little floater going. Very, very curious to see what happens there. I think we mentioned too that Crutwig has the advantage of not being athletic, so he doesn't go for blocks. He stays down defensively, and that helps him stay out of foul trouble. So he's got to do that again today. Agreed.
I'm on the Beavers, guys. If you haven't guessed, +7. I'm locked in to the Beavers. By the way, scale of 1 to 10, guys. Cam Crutwig's mustache. What do you think? I say 10.
Yeah, 9.5.
9.5.
I think it could be a little thinner, Kai, a little more,
Yeah.
Wispy.
a little more wispy, I
Wispy.
guess, akin to mine occasionally. So I get it 9.5, slight
Right.
discount.
9.5. All right, got it. Moving on. Houston and Syracuse. Houston -6 up to -6.5 just a couple days ago. 140.5. Pretty consistent total. Touch 141, touch 140, but settling around that 140.5 number for the total. Guys, from a matchup perspective, I think this is the best matchup on the board for Houston. The way they rebound, the way they shoot against a Syracuse team that I think they can defend quite well. Matthew, tell me why I'm wrong.
You're correct. I agree. I think we've gotten news recently that Dejan Giroux is going to be good to go with pretty much no setbacks or no limitations. I think he's a key guy, a key piece in that zone busting offense that Kelvin Sampson will have to deploy. Quentin Grimes, I just see this being the game where he makes like 6 threes, and he has shot the ball with oozing confidence all year long. We never thought of him as a shooter. Then he comes out and makes 91 threes at a 42% clip. And you watch the shots he makes. I mean, they're deep threes with no hesitation. And we know Marcus Sasser, who's only shooting 33% on the year, Jim, is a much better shooter than that. At least I'm inclined to believe so. So that's two knockdown shooters on top of all the offensive rebounder, the brigade they're going to send to the glass if they don't make shots. Too many avenues for Houston to score. I think Houston wins fairly easily.
Yeah, I'm scared to say fairly easily just because Syracuse has the juju,
that mojo,
have it going right now. Buddy Boeheim's made 13 threes already this tournament. He's ridiculous. But
Thanks.
I'm leaning towards Houston still. Yeah, I think the physicality can get to them on the glass. The fact that, okay, we have good first shot makers, but even if we don't, like, we're going to get probably half our misses. So that's huge for Houston. On the other end, it's a little like San Diego State where you can get shots against this defense. You're going to get 3-pointers up, but Houston is so long and swarming and they close out so hard. I think it's not going to be at the highest of quality shots for Syracuse. So, we know Boeheim can hit tough shots. We know Joe Girard can hit tough shots. Alan Griffin's kind of vanished from the rotation lately as they've gone to a little bit more of a defensive lineup. And it's made the zone a lot more potent. They're longer. You get Kadari Richmond out there more. He is an elite defender at the top of the zone. So I don't know. I'm still leaning Houston though. Yeah, I think there's just too many avenues to offense for them. Just not ready to bet a total, but I would take Houston on the spread if I had to.
But Jim, we got flagged for not having Alan Griffin top 100 player. That can't be true.
Oh, wow.
Well, Kai, you're going to play 11 minutes a game down the stretch. That's top 100 right there.
Hey, I think so too. Houston, -6 for me. Absolutely. I really want Kelvin Sampson to get this team to the Final Four. I think he deserves it at this particular organization, this university. So go Houston. I'm cheering for you. Go Cougs. Moving on. Florida State and Michigan. Very heavyweight matchup here. Florida State opened +3. It's now down +2. Moved pretty quickly off 3. People seem to like the Noles quite a bit, guys. 143.5. Pretty consistent total in this one. Jim, we'll start with you. Florida State money line.
Yeah, do it.
All right.
I think the Noles win.
Done.
I think Michigan has had the luxury so far of not playing in defense that can really limit them without Isaiah Livers. They were able to still get the ball in the post and win with ball movement against LSU's very decrepit's maybe too mean, but it's a bad defense. It's not a good squad on that end.
Disinterested.
But yeah, now you get Florida State's defense with all the length everywhere on the court, the switchability, the fact that they can swarm the smaller guards for Michigan. I think that's a major problem for Michigan here. The other end, they could be frustrating. I think Michigan can really, do some things to shut down Florida State a little bit. So maybe you want to take a peek at the under. I still think Florida State has a great shooting game coming. It's too good of a perimeter shooting team to have the stagnant efforts they've had from deep so far. So I would take Noles +2.5. I would also probably take money line, Matthew.
Yeah, we talked about this, how Florida State is a top 23-point shooting team on the year, but they're only 27% so far in the tournament. Did not make one against UNC Greensboro. I think we saw that was a game where they kind of had to, Greensboro made that late sort of mini push and Florida State had to shove them away at the end. And this is a game where I think I'm with Jim. I think they just get hot. And I guess the question comes down, Kai, it comes down to this. If they're not hot, are there enough avenues for them to score to put away Michigan? And I think there are. I think they lean on their defense in this one. Jim, you mentioned this as well. Hunter Dickinson, I think we look at this on the surface and say that's a matchup problem for Michigan or for Florida State. And I would agree. The issue is getting him the ball. And there's probably going to be some doubles coming his way as well. I mean, he's dealt with doubles very well all season. Just entering the basketball to Hunter Dickinson around the Great Wall of China trees that they have out there on their perimeter is going to be a chore in and of itself. I lean Florida State. I'm with Jim. You kind of convinced me that the under seems to have some value. I can see both teams struggling to score on both sides here.
Yeah, Michigan's played some physical teams in the Big Ten. I don't think they've played a team quite as physical / talented as Florida State quite yet. This is going to be a real challenge for them, especially on the perimeter. I do think Florida State has some advantages hitting the boards. I don't know. I just really like this team. I like Leonard Hamilton. I like Juwan Howard too, to be honest. I think this is their game. I think DraftKings is sort of a sponsor for FTN in some fashion, so I think I can say this, but DraftKings offers some awesome boosts on like every single game.
Yeah.
Not a bad game to get a boost on Florida State, in my opinion, if you're looking for that sort of thing. Florida State plus 2.5 for me as well, guys. Okay, moving on. Gonzaga and Creighton, everyone's national title pick, including mine, and I do think they will get there. At least I hope they do. Yes, thank you, Jim. Yep, this one's been between 13 and 13.5 all week. I think Matt had a stat. It's like the second biggest spread or biggest spread for a Sweet 16 game in 15 years, something like that. Actually did touch 14 on Monday very briefly, came back down. Total's been around 158 the entire time. Pretty high total, but that's to be expected in a game with Gonzaga and Creighton. Jim, throwing you the ball first. I want you to one-hand catch it, do a move between your legs, slip and slide, take it to the hoop off the chain, and kick it to Matt off the heezy.
All right. I will try to accomplish all of that.
Yes.
Key matchup here is Drew Timme versus Christian Bishop. I think both guys can do things that are difficult for the other guy to defend. So you put Timme in the post, and I think he can bury Bishop. Just not enough real size and length for Bishop. And honestly, Timme can score against anybody. He's in the 99th percentile for post-up scoring.
He's so good.
Like almost 1.3 per post-up. And,
Yeah.
Some of that is the WCC, but also he just like cooked the Oklahoma front line. So it's not really a competition thing for him. He's just really good. But on the other end, Bishop in space, you get him attacking from the top of the key and some handoff sets, or in space as a roll man. You make Timme guard the pick and roll, have to bluff and recover. That, I think, opens up some avenues for Creighton to score, whether it's via driving lane or kick out three. Lots of lethal guys with the ball in their hands for Creighton. That's not a shortage on this squad. A lot of skill. So I think both teams can score. That the understat did scare me a little, Matt, at the top of the show, but I would lean towards the over in this one. If I had to go aside, I'd say Creighton, but man, I'm sick of betting against Gonzaga, so I will sit out aside in this game.
Yeah, the total. I mean, I can see like if Gonzaga does the Gonzaga juggernaut thing where this is a 20-point game with 10 minutes to go, you just see an up and down rec style game where it's just 3-3-3-3, and both teams know the outcome's decided. But the defense is just kind of like have it. So that's something playing in your favor if you want to take the over. Kai, I think your opening point's the right one. It's just crazy that a team, in my opinion, that's a fringe top 10 team is getting 13 points on a neutral site in the Sweet 16 matchup. I like the Jays here with the value, and I think it's a scary bet. But I just look at just from a pure value perspective, Oklahoma closed 14.5-14. So you're implying to me that Creighton is only 1 point better than Oklahoma on a neutral. And I say I would appraise Creighton as probably 3-4 points better than Oklahoma on neutral. Just the way they're trending right now. Wow. I know I'm a minority there. I've been higher on Creighton than most all season. I just think their offense is sort of a buy low entity, and we saw spurts of that against Ohio.
3 to 4 points better than Oklahoma without Harmon. I would maybe agree.
Okay, that's fair. Yep. People keep forgetting that he did not play in that OU game. He definitely would have helped them.
Didn't matter.
Yeah, maybe it didn't matter.
I guess Mizzou.
You made kind of a run late though. Like they had a chance to push it to 7, but then Zach's like, no, get out of here.
Hey, to Jim's point on
Creighton for me, but eyes closed bet.
To Jim's point on Timme, oh my God, I love watching him in the post. He has that Hakeem like dream shake patience where, all right, not there, pivot away, not there, pivot away, not there. Surely he won't do it one more time, and he does one more time, and that's when he gets them. It's awesome. He's so patient.
I put that little spin cycle move in my preview on 3manweave.com.
God, I
And he
love
did
that.
he did the after he did it, he did the whoop,
He does
spun him.
have great celebrations too. One
Flutter.
of his, the little flutter,
Flutter.
as well. Yeah, I'm a Zags guy, man. I love this team. Creighton, you're not stopping Timmy. You're not stopping Suggs. You're not stopping Kispert. Excuse me. You're not stopping any of these guys. I really think Gonzaga has a huge advantage here. I like the over with Jim. I like Gonzaga minus 13. Boom. Moving on. Next game. Here we go. Oregon and USC. It's a Pac-12 battle. The Pac-12 really shining in this Sweet 16. 4 teams. Yikes. That's an incredible feat right there from a conference most thought was kind of down this year. Oregon plus 2.5 down to plus 2. Hit 2 back on Wednesday. The total is slightly down from 139 to 138.5. Matt, I'm starting with you. Do we need to recap the ugly game that we saw between these two teams early on in the season when Oregon looked like scared little kids, I guess, in their first day at middle school? No references to my own past.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It's like when we played up a year or two in like an early Rockwood game, and it's like, oh, these kids all hit puberty. We're still like shrimps. Like what? We're trying to launch the ball over their massive arms. That's what it looked like essentially. But this is a rematch, and Dana Altman's a great coach. He'll make adjustments. Oregon's also a better team than they were at that point in the season. Yes. But Jim, they didn't like grow any. I don't think USC shrunk any. So the fundamental matchup concerns that emerge there are not just going to disappear in this game. The question is, what adjustments will Altman make? Will the players make to, combat that eyesore of a game that we watched earlier in the season?
Yeah, USC actually grew another Mobley because Isaiah did not play in that first game.
So about 7 feet. So,
got an extra Mobley. That's a nice little advantage for the Trojans. I think the Oregon Ducks defense has to do a lot better job of making the USC guards uncomfortable. They were super chill from the start. Ethan Anderson was handling the ball. Tajidi hit 3 threes in the first 90 seconds of the first meeting between these two. So they've really got to make Anderson uncomfortable, especially on the ball. He can't have 8 assists and 1 turnover like he did in that first meeting. And the zone and the different schemes that Altman draws up have to remove the ball from Evan Mobley's hands somehow. They did a nice job of it last game. He only took 7 field goals and 3 free throws in that first meeting. But they were so dominated by the guards that it didn't really matter at all. So curious to see what kind of adjustments Altman makes, especially offensively, because they were thoroughly shut down by USC for most of that game. But man, I lean towards Oregon here on my number. I'm scared about the matchup concerns from the first meeting, Kai. This is a kind of a hand up. I don't know. I don't have anything in this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to give Oregon a bit of credit. We've all been there in basketball games when the other team is just unconscious to start the game. It's like, whoa, like body blow, body blow. And then on the other end, they're missing bunnies. Like they're missing open shots they normally hit. Sure, USC's big, but probably could have made some of those. That just compounds on itself. You get down, 15-0. I mean, it's really hard to come back from that. I am trying to dig for something here for my Ducks because I am on the Ducks today at +2. Oregon does have to shoot well. I don't think Taji is going to be walking fireball. And Jim, I like your point about taking the game out of Mobley's hands. I think they can do that again. And for me, Dana Altman is just a better coach than Andy Enfield. We got to give Andy a little bit of credit for his job he's done this year after ragging on him for several years on this organization after his days at Florida Gulf Coast, which we actually were quite high on him after that. But Oregon for me, +2. Next, and actually last game we're going to talk about here is Jim's Alabama Tide, -6 to -6.5. Little tiny steam on Alabama against UCLA. Steady total, 145.5. I'm going to let Matt get the first crack here, and then Jim's going to come in and talk about Nate Oates and all that jazz. Matt.
Just a bad matchup for UCLA. I just really don't. Maybe I was too one-sided in my breakdown of this game, but man, I just think everything sets up well here for Alabama. To me, what has lifted Alabama's offense to a new level is Jovan Jellyfam Captain Quinerly. He just basically gives them a new dimension that they didn't really have before. We talked about how Alabama's offense is, transition. Everyone knows that they like to run and gun and they jack threes. They only shoot layups. Excuse me. God, something caught my throat. I'm good. The desert kind of dry air is getting to me. I don't have that callus built up like Jim does, but they never run pick and roll, Kai. They always just go dry. Yeah, that's actually not a thing at all. You're right. But how about they score, they drive, they kick, right? There's not a lot of pick and roll action like a lot of teams run these days, except when Quinerly comes in, they do run quite a bit because he's so good in pick and roll. And we've seen that the last couple of games. I just think that's again another way that you can attack and exploit UCLA's defense on the perimeter. And if he keeps playing near perfect basketball, I just don't see how they defend all the offensive ammunition that the Tide can throw out there.
Yeah. All right. I got a lot to say about this game, guys.
Nice.
Go.
That's an autographed picture from Nate Oates.
Nathaniel Oates. There he is.
Mr. Oates.
Is it addressed to you, Jim?
Come on. Yes. No. But maybe.
Dear Jim, keep shooting. Nate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I'm rolling with the Tide today. I got to stick with them. I've been a little nervous about them in recent games or in recent weeks because their offense had some lulls. But Matt, to your point, Quinterly's been great, and honestly, the defense has carried them. They can always count on the defense to make things difficult. Ton of length on that end, very switchable. They've got versatile defenders. They've been playing Jawan Gary some at center, which makes them 1 through 5. They can switch easily. They got Josh Primo back, another 6'6" wing that is very skilled defensively. So yeah, I think UCLA struggles to score as well, particularly in the half court game that they're going to try to play. I'm going to go with Alabama, even at that -6.5 price.
If I can play revisionist history guy or hindsight guy on my bracket, I don't know why I chose Alabama to bow out in the second round, because you look at this team, they have everything you want in an NCAA tournament team, right? They have an awesome guard in Quinterly and really a bunch of other good players as well. An awesome defense, they're the best team in the country, and a team that can shoot the crap out of the ball. Their offense hasn't been great all the time, as Jim pointed out, but we've seen them hit 14, 15 threes several times in games. And also they're well coached. This team kind of has all the qualifications you look for in a potential Final Four team. They check every box. So I was wrong to pick them out in the second round, obviously, but I'm disappointed in myself. I also like Alabama here, -6.5. I think it's a really good matchup for them. Guys, any final points here on the Sweet 16 in general? We'll be back next week, by the way, to talk Final Four. But any final thoughts? Matthew, I'll give you one chance to give your final thought.
Yeah, I think this East region is interesting. You look at Florida State, Michigan, Alabama. You can kind of isolate a point in time in the season where they were kind of the toast of the town. And then for whatever reason, they had a few non-perfect games where we sort of like the luster eroded away. But now I think we're seeing signs of, these teams are legitimately top 5 good. It's just a tough draw for UCLA that you're basically stuck with, in my opinion, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th best teams remaining in the field with Gonzaga and Baylor. In my opinion, still a cut above. Think about that, Kai. Yeah, let that marinate. Trust me, it's the correct take.
Florida State over Houston, huh?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that.
You don't agree with that? Okay, I guess I throw Houston in that mix too. Wow. But you could argue it's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th best team. Those are the clear 3 through 6, but 3 of those 4 reside in this region. So I think the best game today is Florida State, Michigan. I'm sorry, that's tomorrow, Sunday. That's the best game of the Sweet 16, Jim. I'm curious to see who comes out of that region.
I think the most fun game to me will end up being USC Oregon, as long as we get a little bit of tempo. I think that's going to be a good time. And those two, Matt, the ones we mentioned, are the lowest spread, so we are not giving super hot takes there.
Right.
Taking those. But yeah, I don't have any super overarching thoughts, just that I still think we are headed towards Gonzaga Baylor, the game we all want and deserve after no tournament last year. I think so.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining our Fade the Noise show. Please visit ftnbets.com. Check out what they do on that site. It's truly incredible in the fantasy realm. These guys know everything. Baseball's coming up. I'm sure they got a bunch of baseball experts there ready to make you rich, 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 richer than your wildest dreams, richer than Mr. Burns. Seriously, they make you a lot of money. We are the 3-Man Weave, and we will see you next week at the same time for our last show of the season, talking about the Final Four. Good luck.